This video is on sit and down stay. So if you have a hard time not only getting your dog to sit or down, but to stay and remain in that position, then this video should be helpful for you. Having the ability to tell your dog to go into a position and then to remain there for extended periods of time, even with distractions and things going on, is a really beneficial skill to have. In the video, we're going to talk about how to reinforce and proof, which just means make more reliable, your sit and down stay, and we'll also give you guys some exercises that will help you practice this. We are not going to go over how to teach sit or down. So your dog should already know the command sit or down. They should know what that means, and they should know how to go into the position. So hopefully you've already watched our video on how to tell your dog to sit and down. But just remember to say their name first and then sit.
Nino, sit.
The name first and then down. Down. And also, we most likely taught your dog a hand signal. So for sit, you're gonna raise your hand up like this. And then for down, you're gonna point to the ground and bend over. Down. Remember to reward your dog sometimes. As far as how often, how much you should reward them, that depends on a lot of factors. Your trainer will go over that with you, but in general, the more you're rewarding your dog, the more likely they'll be motivated to listen to you. Sit. Good. Remember to mark before you bring the treat out. The marker helps with timing. It helps your dog understand exactly what they're getting rewarded for.
Nino, sit. Good.
Good. Nice. You have the choice of marking with either yes or good. Yes means your dog is allowed to get up from the position and come get the treat from you. Well, sit. Yes! So when you say yes, you're basically saying, good job for sitting. You can come get the treat from me now. Yes is not a good marker if your dog has trouble settling or staying still. So if your dog has a hard time holding the position once you say sit or down, use good instead. When you say good, your dog is not allowed to get up. So good means you're gonna bring the reward to them and then they have to remain in the position. Sit. Good. Good. It's kind of like if you have kids telling them they have to eat dinner at the table, they're not allowed to get up and take their food and go in the bedroom. Rewarding with good helps your dog stay motivated to remain in that position. So after you say good, you give them the treat. You don't have to say sit or down or stay again. It should be implied. Good. So with good, when you say good and you start to bring the treat out, don't give your dog the treat if their butt comes off the ground. If their butt comes off, you're gonna say no, take the treat away quickly.
Good. No, sit.
And then when their butt goes back down, then you can bring the treat towards them again.
Good.
So when you're doing this, don't linger too long. Like, don't bring your hand too slowly to your dog because then they might think that you want them to get up out of the sit, or they might think you're luring them out of it. So bring your hand to them fairly quickly and kind of shove it into them at the end so you're almost like pushing them further into the sit.
Good. Sit. Good. No, sit. Good.
Same process for down. So when you say good, you start to bring the treat towards them. If their elbows or their body starts to come up, say no, pull the treat away. You can vary how long your dog stays in the sit or down, and you can vary how many times you reward them, but make sure they don't get up unless you release them. You can release them either by saying, okay, free, which means they're free to get up and do whatever they want. Okay, free. Or you can release them by saying, let's go. Let's go means they should walk with you and follow you. Let's go. The next part of this video, we're going to talk about corrections. So what to do if your dog doesn't sit or down when you tell them, what to do if your dog breaks from their position. So if you've watched everything in the video up until this point and you're thinking, you know, well, I do all the things that you've shown me, but my dog still doesn't listen to me sometimes, or my dog still doesn't stay when I need them to, this next part of the video will probably be helpful for you. Pretty much all dogs need some level of have to in order to establish reliable obedience. At some point, your dog has to know that they have to stay or there will be a consequence. And that's what we're going to talk about in this next part. So there's various ways you can correct your dog for not sitting or downing or for breaking from their stay. We're going to go over the most commonly used ones. Which technique you use is going to depend on your dog, and your trainer will go over this. But we want to give you several different techniques so that you have several tools in your toolbox. The first technique is leash pressure. Leash pressure is when you apply steady, consistent pressure on the leash until your dog either sits or downs, whatever position you told them to be in. And as soon as they're in the position, you release the pressure. The release of the pressure is the most important part of this. So make sure to clearly release the pressure when your dog gets into the position. Down. Good. That's their reward. We call that negative reinforcement. It feels good to your dog when you turn the pressure off. It's kind of like if your smoke detector is going off in your house and then you turn it off, it feels relieving to you. Lots of people don't release the pressure at the right time. So sometimes we'll see people, they'll start pulling on the leash, but then they'll release the pressure before their dog even attempts to sit or down. So trust the process. Make sure you stay committed and that you're patient and that you actually wait till your dog goes all the way into the position. Sometimes it may take several seconds. Sometimes your dog might react immediately as soon as they feel the pressure. It's going to vary, but just remember, if you release that pressure when your dog is not making an effort to sit or down, you're essentially teaching them, hey, if you ignore me or resist me long enough, I'll stop pulling and the pressure will go away. So again, you need to be consistent here so that your dog learns, hey, this pressure's not gonna go away until you do the behavior. Sometimes you might have to increase the amount of pressure. So if you start by gently pulling on the leash and your dog doesn't react, you can gradually increase the amount of pressure. As far as how much pressure you should use, the phrase we like to say is, as little as possible, as much as necessary. So use the minimum amount of pressure needed to get a reaction. Be very careful when you do this. If you pull too hard for too long, this can cause serious problems. If you're only pulling for a few seconds or for just a moment, it will be fine. Make sure you pull in the right direction. So the direction you pull on the leash communicates to your dog what you want. So for sit, you're gonna pull straight up. For down, you're gonna pull down. Also, hold the leash fairly short, so your hand should be pretty close to your dog's neck. It makes it really hard if you're holding your arm way high up in the air like this because you don't have as much strength up here as you do down lower. For down, you can apply pressure using your hand or you can use your foot. Using your foot like this helps because you don't have to bend over, so you don't have to use as much body help. You can also do this same technique using your dog's collar. So you just slip a couple fingers through your dog's collar and apply pressure either up or down. Good.
Mash. Down. No. Good boy.
It's just an extra tool in your toolbox in case you don't have a leash on your dog. Okay, so now that you guys know how to do this technique, let's talk about how to use it. So if you say sit and your dog doesn't respond right away, you're gonna say no, and you're gonna start pulling up on the leash until they sit. 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 Good. You can repeat sit here if your dog doesn't react to the pressure right away, just to help them. And then same with the down. You're gonna say down, you're gonna wait a moment, your dog doesn't respond, start pulling down on the leash. So look for their elbows and their butt to touch the ground. Down. Down. Good. If your dog breaks, then you're gonna say no. The moment they start to get up, say no, walk over, grab the leash, then apply pressure up or down. No. Wait. As far as whether or not you should move your dog back to the original spot they were in, it depends. If your dog moves way far away, if they move, 10 feet from the spot, or let's say they come all the way to you, generally, yes, we will bring them back to where they were and make them sit or down.
Sit. Wait.
But if your dog just moves a few inches or they just move a little bit, it's not always necessary to bring them back. Remember, don't reward your dog immediately after you correct them, because we don't want our dog thinking that they get a treat for breaking from their position. So if you correct them, get them back where they were, and then wait at least 15 seconds or longer before you reward. But don't reward right after you've corrected them. The next technique is spatial or body pressure. And we're not talking about literally forcing your dog into the position using your body. You're using mental pressure by walking assertively into your dog's space. This is kind of like if you're a student in a classroom and you're messing around, you're drawing on your desk, or you're talking to your friend, and your teacher comes over and kind of hovers over you and says like, hey, what are you doing? So if your dog breaks from their sit, you're gonna say no, and then you're gonna assertively start walking towards them. No. Sit. And when they go back down, stop walking towards them. So just like leash pressure, take the pressure off when your dog gets back into the position. Don't continue to put pressure on them after they sit or lie back down. Next technique is a leash pop. So unlike leash pressure, this is a quick, sudden jerk on the leash. How hard or soft you pop depends on your dog. Talk to your trainer about this. This is a sterner correction than leash pressure, so we generally use it with dogs that are a little less sensitive, maybe a little more obstinate, maybe a little more hard-headed. So to do this, when your dog breaks, say no, give a pop on the leash, and then make them go back into the position. Lastly, we'll talk about the e-collar. So if your dog is e-collar conditioned, then you would use an e-collar correction in the same way you would use a leash pop. So when your dog breaks, you're gonna say no, tap the button, and then make your dog go back into the position.
No. No. Down. No. Good.
So now you may be asking, well, which technique do I use with my dog? And that depends. Talk to your trainer about this. You'll probably end up using a combination of all of these different techniques. The most important thing is that you say no first before you apply pressure. Whatever you're using, spatial pressure, leash pop, e-collar, say no first and then give the correction so that you're charging the word no, so that eventually you may only just have to say no, sit, or no, down. and your dog responds to that and they go back. Remember, we call no our correction marker, but you can use a different marker. If your marker is or hey, or stop it, anything is fine. Just whatever you decide to use as your correction marker, say that first and then give the correction. No. It's okay if your dog goes into a more relaxed position. So for example, if your dog's sitting and they lie down, generally that's okay. We don't usually correct dogs for going from a sit to a down. We don't correct our dog if they're trying to get more comfortable, as long as they're not crawling or moving or getting up out of that spot. If they get up a little bit just to readjust and then lay back down, that's fine. All right, so to wrap up this video, we're gonna use all of the things that we've learned so far and we're gonna apply them in one exercise that we like to call red light, green light. So this exercise is a great way to practice sit or down stays. Like anything in life, the more you're practicing a skill, the better you're going to be at that skill. So if you're practicing sit and down stays on a regular basis, then when the time comes when you actually need your dog to stay in a real life situation, they're gonna be better prepared for it. So you're gonna start by telling your dog sit or down, and then you're gonna say wait, or you can say stay, and then you're gonna start walking around them in a circle. If your dog gets up, you're gonna say no and stop, that's red light. You're gonna make your dog go back into the position using whatever technique works best for them, spatial pressure, leash pressure. When your dog goes back into the position, then start walking around them again, so green light. And then remember, we're using all of the techniques we learned in the video, so don't forget to reward your dog. When your dog is not breaking from their position, say good, go back, give them a treat. Remember, with the good marker, they're not allowed to get up. They're only allowed to get up if you release them by saying, okay, free, okay, free. Don't use your yes marker. Remember, yes is not a good way to reward stay because it creates too much excitement. We want to create more stability and calmness. Good. Good. You can reward them as many times as you want. So you can say good, give them a treat, walk away again, good, come back, reward. The more times you reward, the more you're reinforcing it, so it's only gonna make it better. If your dog is not good at this, meaning they tend to break a lot when you're circling them, then hold the leash, keep it in your hand. Make sure you keep the leash loose as you're walking around them, and the leash should only go tight if you're applying pressure, you're giving a pop, or you're correcting them. Now, if you're doing this and your dog just keeps breaking, even after you correct them, they break again, they keep repeating that cycle, it might mean that you're giving too soft of a correction and you might have to give a harder correction. It doesn't always mean that, but that is one possibility, is your dog's just kind of telling you like, it's not really a big deal when I get up because nothing bad really happens. You just kind of like gently put me back in the position, whatever, not a big deal. So you might have to escalate the amount of pressure you're using, because at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to repeatedly correct a behavior over and over and over. You might have to give several corrections. You know, you might have to correct them 2, 3, 4, several times, but eventually you should see that light bulb click in your dog's brain where they're like, okay, I'm not gonna get up anymore because I don't like what happens when I get up, and also good things happen when I stay. If I don't get up, hey, my owner says good, they praise me, they come back, they give me a treat, so it's much better to stay in this position. If your dog is successful at this when you're holding the leash, then the next step is that you're not holding the leash. So still have a leash on them, but you're not holding it, walk around them in a circle. If they break, no, walk over, grab the leash, and then you can use it to use pressure. Lastly, if your dog is e-collar conditioned, then you can practice this without a leash on. Just have the e-collar on, walk around them in a circle. They get up, no, stop, tap the button, make them go back into the position. If your dog is successful at this when you're walking around them in a circle, then start varying your behavior. So you can start walking away from your dog, increasing more and more distance. You can practice walking towards your dog, walking past them, walking over them. If your dog tends to break when you do something specific, like maybe your dog breaks a lot when you open the door, maybe your dog breaks when you bend over to pick something up, Maybe your dog breaks when you go to pet them or touch them or put a collar on. Practice these scenarios and then use the same process that you use when you're walking in a circle. Your dog breaks, no, make them go back in the position, correct them, do whatever you need to do. But then when they don't break, go back and reward. No, sit. Good. 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 No. Down. No. Good. And remember, if your dog's not food motivated, you can reward them with a pet, but just pet them calmly. Don't get crazy and don't get them all amped up when you pet. Good girl, good. Make sure you're smart about when you're releasing your dog. So we don't want our dog to anticipate the release too much. So don't release your dog right after you do something that normally causes them to break. So if your dog breaks when you pet them, you know, don't pet them and then release them right away. Okay, free. Make sure you have separation between doing the thing that causes them to break and then eventually releasing them. So if your dog breaks when you bend over to pick something up, wait several seconds, and then if your dog's still in the position, then release them. Good girl. Okay, free. Okay, free. The thing that's gonna help reinforce that stay is to reward them instead of release them. So you're gonna bend over, pick something up, and if they don't break, good, go back, reward them. Same if your dog breaks when you pet them or touch them or put a collar on, you're gonna touch them, they don't break, good, give them a treat. And that's it for the video. So just to recap some of the bullet points that we talked about, remember to reward your dog, not only for going into the position, but also for staying there. Remember, you're a good marker. Remember to be clear about releasing your dog. Remember, once you say sit or down, your dog is not allowed to just get up whenever they want. And lastly, make sure to practice this skill. Make sure to set up and recreate scenarios where you can practice sit and down stay, where you're doing things that you typically do, where your dog breaks. Remember, the more that you practice this skill, the stronger it will get. Happy training, everyone.